Okay, I'm going to show how I clean pipes. A lot of people have different methods to restoring pipes, but this is my method that I have found works out well. So I have this unbranded fringe pipe, and you might notice it has deoxidization. It also looks like somebody may have taken some sandpaper or filing to it, maybe to kind of clean some of their own chatter marks off. Don't know how well you can see this, but it does say that it is from France. The briar looks pretty good. Until we look into here, we can see that there is some chipping here. This is not chipping of the wood. This is just char that needs to be scratched off. And inside, you can see that there is a char buildup on the wall, char cake, they call it. And so I will be reaming that as well. One of the first things I like to do is to start out working on the stem itself, then kind of moving on outwards. And then the last thing I usually like to do is go inside the pipe itself and do some more cleaning inside where the stem and the briar bowl come in contact. So first, let's get this apart. And it's definitely got some good tension, but I am getting it off. And I'm definitely going to have to work on cleaning that as well. So first I'm going to start off with doing some, I think I probably can get away with doing a little light filing on this, and then I'll get into some sanding. For this, I'm just going to use a needle nose file, a nice flat, rounded, tapered end. I don't know what the official name is called, but I'm just going to give this a little bit of surface treatment on both sides, just to kind of make it more smooth. And for anybody who's watched any of my other videos, you're going to notice some differences in how I clean and do things. I've learned and adapted as I've grown. I have changed my methods. And if anybody's ever curious why these hands shake, it's thanks to long COVID. So there's a little explanation there, a little hidden behind the scenes feature. Now, normally I don't use a file when I'm working on a mouthpiece, unless it has some really deep grooves, or in this case, it had been either filed or sanded with a really high grit. I've now kind of smoothed that as best as I can with the file. You can only go so far. You don't want to go too deep either, because you don't want to thin this material out. Next up, I'm going to use a variety of sandpapers that I have. These you can use wet or dry. I just got them at our local hardware store. I've got 400 grit, 600 grit, 1000 grit, and then this is 1500. So I'll go through each one of these to kind of smooth it out. Then I also have these sandpaper mesh pads, which I got on Amazon, and I will put a link in the description. And you can see where these sandpapers end is where the coarseness of these mesh pads go to. For now, I'm not going to go all the way up. I might go somewhere in the middle. Basically, I just want to smooth this out for now. I will work on increasing the grit after I have got it in the deoxidizer. So for now, I'm just going to go sand with these and maybe go about halfway up this chart, and then we'll see what this looks like before we put it in the deoxidizer. So far, this is what it looks like after just hitting it with the 400 grit. You can see I'm already starting to get it smooth, and then as I go up in the course, then it's really going to be doing really well. In case you're curious, this is a corn cob that I restored that I'm currently just smoking some bulk black and gold, presumably Cavendish, that I got from a cigar shop in a local town. And just something I enjoy doing whenever I'm working on pipes sometimes, is I like to enjoy a pipe. Just a little guilty pleasure. I only made it up to about 2400 grit, and I mean, you still got the lines. That's part of the oxidization material kind of setting up in those lines as it's been sanded, but it's now very similar kind of smoothness to the rest of this stem piece. So now what I'm going to do is get it in the deoxidizer. Then I will actually go further through each one of these to polish this up. But first, let's do the deoxidizer. For deoxidizing, I just started using lbepin.com, and this is just an 8-ounce bottle of deodorizer, extra strength. I just keep it in a sealed, this is the lid, plastic container, just so that I can keep reusing it. You can see some of the coloration in there, a little brown. That's from deoxidizing some other pipes. This is not the first time I have deoxidized. And it's a very simple process. First, I'm going to put a glove on because this stuff is quite sticky, and also being chemicals, you want to try to keep your hands safe. So I would suggest, and they even suggest, using gloves. So quite a simple process. All I'm going to do is just make sure this is fully submerged. And it is. And I'm just going to close the lid. Make sure it's sealed. And it just depends on the level of oxidization that you have. But I usually go no less than 45 minutes to an hour for one that's about oxidized about this much, just to be safe. Okay, while we've got that stem deoxidizing, got it set for an hour, we can work on the bowl. Two main tools that I use for working on the bowls are a reamer tool. You can get the kind that are non-adjustable. I personally like these because you can set it for as big or as small as you want and can make very small incremental changes, which is really great as you start working on the cake. Another nice thing that I like about it too is it has this piece at the end here where you can go into the pipe, and you can see, you can kind of, if you needed to kind of almost bore it out if there's a lot of char buildup in there. That is another great thing about this tool. I will have a link to this specific reamer in the description as well. Another tool that I didn't mention yet is the handy dandy check pipe tool. Most likely, if you smoke pipes, you should have one of these. I like to use the spoon side of it, and I'll show you that once I've got this reamed out. So let's start seeing how much we can get out of this. And I've got this set on the loosest it can go. It's okay if you hear a little bit of the squeaking. And you can see we already have started making progress. The nice thing about this is having this on the smallest setting. Now that I start to remove some of this char, I can come in here and I can tighten this up to go further into the char that remains. And I'm just going to keep working on this down in the bowl. I'll even lift it up and work in here. Careful not to go too far out or lean to a side, because you will start digging into the rim with these pieces right here. They do have a sharp edge to where they can actually dig into the char. So I'm going to get this reamed and then I will be back. All right. This has been reamed. Trying to see if I can get a good lighting there for you. You can kind of see it a little bit there. Let me pull down my light and see if that might help. Yeah, I think that helped. But in the bowl, the cake has been significantly thinned out. I don't worry about going all the way back to the briar, because there's nothing wrong with having some char on there. You're going to develop it naturally anyways when you're smoking a pipe. You just don't want it to be super thick. And if you want to know the thickest one that I've ever done, just look at my prior videos. You'll see a very dirty Peterson. That was the worst. And in fact, using my reaming tool, I developed blisters. So I would suggest if you ever have anything that remotely bad, use gloves on that hand that you're using your reaming tool on. Next up, get my pipe out of my mouth. See this in this area, that kind of chipped area that I was speaking about. I'm now going to gently just kind of work with my check tool, just kind of scratching it off. I'm not applying a lot of pressure because I don't want to dig into the wood. I just want to remove this char. And I will just sit here and work on removing this char from the rim. I will also kind of get a little bit in this area too, near the top of the bowl. And so I'll go all the way around the rim, just like I did here. And then I will show you what it looks like after that. Just remember, apply light pressure. Okay, so I've spent some time on scraping around gently the rim. And so what I like to do is make sure that I've got everything. So I'm actually using one of the mesh pads. I'm using one of the higher grits, so 8,000. Now I'm just going to keep it flat for the most part. You know, I'm just going around in circles on this rim. I don't want to go too low in the grit because I don't want to deal with having to polish the bowl itself. I try to make things as easy as possible. And so now I can start to see it somewhat shining, but I also can see that there is still some more char spots that I'm going to have to work on. And that is the advantage, you can see some there, of giving it a polish like that. I'll even sometimes just kind of get a cloth and just kind of wipe it, get some of that dust off of it. Then I can really see what I'm working with. But I'm going to have to keep working on getting some more of this char off the ledge of this rim here. So I will go back and forth between this tool, sanding, giving it a wipe, and once this char is off of here, then I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've spent some time working on it with the check tool. Now we have a distinguishable rim. There is some little marks that I've discovered where it's kind of chipped a little bit. I did spend some time going down to the 4,000 range on the mesh pads, up 6,000, 8,000, and 12,000. A little bit of water on the rag just to kind of get the dust off. And then it is pretty well to the point that I am happy with it. I do not go for perfection. I do not go to make these look like new. These were used heavily. And I just basically want to make it to where somebody else can use it again. And it doesn't look like it's been abused. And so this is where I'm happy with when it comes to restoring pipes. Next up, I'm going to give this bowl a little bit of a water bath. I'll show you what I mean. I learned from watching a pipe maker talking about cleaning bowls and stuff. I no longer use soap. Just use some water, tap water, distilled water, whatever. Doesn't really make that much difference. I'm just going through and just kind of with a soft brush. This is a used brush. If you don't have a used brush, then buy yourself a new toothbrush and you can use the old one. Perfect excuse to buy a new toothbrush. Oral hygiene is a good thing, especially if you smoke pipes or cigars. So make sure you've got a new toothbrush so you can use the old one. But I'm just giving this a light bath, just kind of scrubbing. What I'm doing is kind of getting maybe some of the dirt and grime that might have splashed on from whenever there were some different tobaccos in here. And sometimes when you blow out a little too hard or something, then you might get some little marks on your pipe. So this is just a way to kind of give this a nice cleaning. And then I'll just dry it off with just a rag, just to make sure that everything's fine. You can get in the bowl if you want. It's not going to hurt anything. I usually don't. I usually save the bowl for whenever I'm going to be using a pipe cleaner, because I'm going to do a much more thorough job when I get to that point. So for now, I'm just worrying about the outside of the bowl. So whatever dirt and grime may be on there should hopefully be off. If not, I can just keep scrubbing at it to make sure it's nice and clean. Okay, the stem has been sitting in the deoxidizer for an hour now. And as a reminder, make sure you wear gloves. This stuff is thick like corn syrup. And I think it's as about sticky as corn syrup too. It is pretty nasty on texture, to be honest. All right, whenever you get it out of the deoxidizer, you're going to want to use an old rag. Before I get to rubbing on that, I'm just going to close this up because I do not want this to dry out in the slightest. All right. And then this is according to the instructions. This is not my direction, but LB Pen talks about vigorously wiping down the stem. Okay, so I rubbed vigorously, and as you might recall, this was more of a brownish color. It is now a black color. Something you're definitely going to want to make sure you do whenever you're working with this is you got to make sure you're running a pipe cleaner through it, because this has stuff in the inside now, and it's actually quite disgusting to watch it come out. But I'm going to subject you to it anyways so that you can see. Yeah. Nice thing about doing this too is it also helps with any deoxidization that took place within as well. And we'll just toss that. This is the only time that I'm going to be actually using soap. And I'm just using a bit of Dawn soap. It's safe enough for ducks. It should be safe enough for your pipe. And this will not be the only thing I will clean the stem with. You'll see some more cleaning that will take place, but I at least want to try to wash out whatever is remaining of that deoxidizer. So I'm going to spend some time rubbing this with a soft toothbrush. I'm probably going to run a few pipe cleaners through it as well, just to ensure that we've got all of it out. So I'll be back. You might remember earlier where I talked about I wasn't super concerned about getting this smooth because it was going to happen during the polishing, and that is what's going to happen next. There's two different methods that you can use when it comes to polishing. You can use sandpaper and mesh pads going from lowest grit to highest grit, or you can use a polishing wheel. I have done both. For the sake of this video, I'm actually just going to stick with the sandpaper and the sand mesh pads, and I am just going to start at 400 grit, and I'm going to go all the way up to 12,000. So I will just be sitting here working on getting this sanded all the way up to that grit. And one thing that I like to do in between the grit is I will have a bowl of water and I will just kind of dip this in it to remove this dust, so then I can see if there's any more sanding that I need to do, and I will just work my way up all the way to the 12,000. So I will see you when I have the 12,000 grit done on this mouthpiece. Okay, so I have went through lots of different grits, and now it has a shine. You remember all the filing and everything that we Okay, so we've cleaned the outside of our pipe, polished our mouthpiece, cleaned this, scraped it, reamed it. Now it's time to clean the inside. This is the slurry that I had mentioned earlier. For cleaning the mouthpiece, I like to use just a soft bristled pipe cleaner. I like to use that in the inside because I don't want to get a bunch of scratches in the inside. That's good places for different kind of debris and whatnot to get stuck, and really it's better to just kind of not scratch the inside of your mouthpiece. The wood, however, can handle a bristled pipe cleaner, and this is what I like to use for it because it can really kind of scrape at what is inside both the bowl and the outward piece here too. Forget the name of that. However, if all you have is just soft pipe cleaners, that's fine too. It will do the job. Typically, I don't use the slurry whenever I'm doing my normal cleaning of my pipe. When I'm done with it, I don't deep clean with it or anything. I only use it for just the pipe restoration because this is a pretty powerful solvent, and I don't want to always have to subject my pipe to this. But what I'll do is I'll just dip the end of it in there. Then I'll just put it into the mouthpiece. And it's not too bad because we have actually already ran some pipe cleaners through it. I like to give it a wiggle so that it can kind of collect some of the outside old smoke and any tobacco remnants. But I'll go ahead and run this through again. I'll just kind of dip this in here. I'll maybe run one or two pipe cleaners through that have the solvent on it. Just depends on how dirty it is. And then lastly, I'll just grab a dry one and just kind of try to dry up any of the alcohol that's in here. And then just kind of run this through. I'm going to run it through until it's clean. So I'll come back once that is done. Okay, that didn't take too long. One more after that last one I showed you, and this is almost like it's never been used. So now we'll move on to the bowl. When it comes to the bowl, I will only put the alcohol. You got to be very careful. You do not want to get this on the wood. It will eat away at your polish and dye there. I will only go just, I don't know if you can see that, but just to where it starts to show up in the bowl. And that's as far as I will go. I will not clean the inside of the bowl with alcohol. And usually I won't dip that more than once unless it's absolutely filthy. Primarily, I just don't want to have to deal with smoking alcohol because this wood will soak it up. This little bit at the bottom isn't going to hurt anything. But if I chose to do this throughout the pipe, throughout the bowl and everything, then I'm going to taste this when I'm smoking it. And that's not what I want to do. So I did one dip, and now I'm just scrubbing with just that bristle brush, that bristle pipe. And I'm just going to do this for a while until I get it pretty well clean. Depending on the pipe, this is one of them that's got a pretty big hole here. I will actually bend this over and go in here and just kind of see what I can clean up inside here too. And if you want to see how I clean pipes on just for regular maintenance, just drop a comment and I'll show you how I do that. I'll just go ahead and show you that once I've come through here and I'm pretty well happy with the way it's looking. I don't expect perfection on this because I am going into a bowl that does have some more carbon in it, but you can see it's getting better and better. So, but once I'm done with scraping that inside there, I will just fold over a pipe cleaner and just kind of twist it around, just kind of scraping at the edges, just trying to like clean up any remnants that I can. I do not expect this to be perfect. I'm not going to keep doing this until it becomes less dirty, usually kind of like once or twice, depending on how dirty it is. This isn't super dirty, so I'm probably just going to do it just that one time. But I am going to go ahead and scrape through here a little bit more just to kind of clean that up, and then I'll come back. Okay, so I ran pipe cleaner through the bowl, or through the stem part of the bowl, and I'm pretty happy with the way the pipe cleaner came out. Again, I did not expect perfection, but now the last part is just to kind of oil it up because it's kind of got a little bit of a dullness thanks to washing it and just kind of handling it a bunch. So I like to use Clark's cutting board oil. It is a food grade safe oil that you would use for cutting boards. And so I like to make sure that everything that I use on my pipe is food grade safe, because this is something that is going to be in your mouth and you're going to be inhaling from. It does not take much. A little bit goes a long way when it comes to this. So I'll just kind of get just a tiny bit on here. That's really all I'll need. And then I just use my hands. You can use a rag if you want. I personally like to use my hands because it's kind of good for your skin too, just to kind of take up some of this oil. And this is a mineral oil based cutting board oil. This is unscented too, so I don't have to worry about anything. Get a little bit on the edge here. If you get some in the bowl, it's not a problem. This is food grade safe, but try not to get it in the bowl if you can. And I'll just take a paper towel and just kind of rub at it to get the excess oil off. It's not like you're rubbing the oil off, you're just getting the excess off. At the same time, you can kind of get it off your own hands too. Now it has a nice sheen to it. Looks like it's good to go. I'm just going to kind of make sure I get some more of that excess oil off of here. All right. As you see, that looks a whole lot better and fell out of the frame. Sorry about that. All right. Now the only thing left to do is just to kind of put it all together. I usually like to just give it a quick wipe down should there be any kind of dust or anything from just everything that we've been doing to the pipe. But yeah, that's it. This is now smooth again, and it's no longer oxidized. We can now see a rim. We don't have a carbon buildup inside the bowl. The inside is clean, and the outside has been oiled. And I will drop a link to that oil that I am using for this. And yeah, that's how I do pipe restoration. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for everybody who has watched the video so far. I do plan on doing more. They'll continue to be the format where I don't really talk during them, but I figured people would like to see my process to date. Thank you so much.